This is fourth session of this Vision Summit. And for those of you who have been following us, they're kind of mapping out the 4 modules of our Vision 2020 program. And it's an effort of ours to share kind of behind the curtain the journey that we're trying to take people on, the journey that we've been on ourselves, to hopefully inspire and spark you into action on any kind of idea or direction that you've been maybe sitting on for a while, or not only just sitting on scaredly for a while because you're not sure about how to move it forward. So hopefully over the past 4 days, you've got some thoughts and ideas and some sort of inspiration for action. And with this particular session, we're going to tackle one of the scariest parts of the program, which is actually showing yourself, taking up space, having an opinion, and putting it out to the world. Which for a lot of people, and as I understand it, the statistic is like, I don't know, was it 99% of people on LinkedIn are just lurkers? Like very few people actually post. They don't even engage, some of them, a lot of them actually. They just like appreciate from afar. So you don't even get the benefit of a little like or a little heart on your post. They just silently appreciate you, which is an interesting aspect of this. But anyway, well, what I thought we could do is we just initially just tackle or share our own sort of what we've heard in terms of what blocks people, or in terms of sharing their voice, or what that even means for some people based on our experience. So, Lana, do you wanna start us off?
Yeah. Oh, the very first thing that comes to mind is authenticity. Yeah. And what does authenticity mean anyway? Um, with all the cohorts that we've had for the past 5 years, I think that's one of the biggest redefinition that a lot of our Vision 2020 alumni had to do is to define that for themselves of like what does it really mean to share authentically in different spaces. And for me, I lean back to one of our core message in the program is that yeah, it's not about sharing to everybody, but it's about sharing your voice to people who would, one, get inspired by it, two, might resonate with it with their own personal experiences, and three, might be looking for inspiration, solutions, ways of seeing that your voice and your experiences can offer to them. So for me, it really flips a lot when I see or approach it from a working out loud or a documentation type of a process of like, oh, I'm sharing my voice to document, hey, this is how my thoughts are at this given moment. This is where I'm leaning towards to, this is what I'm grappling with, and who knows who would resonate with it. And the invitation is to have then the conversations. And so for me, that is my definition of what it means to authentically share things and approach this idea of sharing your voice in a way that resonates with me most. How about you, Lawrence?
Um, it's interesting when Carlos said that 99% of people on LinkedIn don't post, because I can imagine most people's perception is that everyone's posting and everyone's shouting, and it's a fight to get attention. And I know when we talk to people about doing the LinkedIn challenge, which is one of the assignments we set at the end of the program, there's this fear of like, oh my God, I'm just adding to the noise, that everyone's shouting and I just need to be the one that shouts loudest. Um, and I try and think back to years ago when I started blogging and how, yeah, I remember feeling a bit like, oh, have I got anything to say here? Is this important? Is anyone going to care? And if they are going to care, are they actually going to care negatively? The whole trolling thing. But actually, I found just having this place to have an outlet to actually build clarity for myself. So I kind of reframed posting and writing is actually about me, not about other people, which I know is kind of counterintuitive, but I found it helpful just to have that reframe. and then started to find that actually some people are getting value from this, and it does lead to, like you said, connection, and then finding out who the people are that gravitate to this. So it really helped me to understand who am I writing to, or who do these messages resonate with, this approach, this philosophy, and like you said, these ideas. So for me, it's partly about connection to others, but also about connection to self as well. And that's been my journey, is working out loud and then finding out what this thing is and who these people are in the process.
I think one of the biggest challenges, and I had this with social media, and I believe most people have with social media, particularly when they think about putting stuff out onto social media, is they conflate putting something out with social media with marketing. As soon as you do anything on social media, you're particularly if you're a professional, you're marketing. So the purpose for you to be there, and this is the like little leap. Oh, and I'm selling. So every time I'm trying to sell an idea, I'm trying to push an idea. So I think that is the crux of the challenge of when people think about, oh, I've got to engage with this thing. It's like, "Oh, what am I selling? What's the message? How can I actually be of an influence? How can I actually change people's minds?" And so they don't want to take up space. They get scared they're going to be judged and trolled. They suffer from imposter syndrome because who am I to say any of this stuff? And then, like Laurence said, like, do I really want to add to the noise? Isn't everyone else talking about this at the same time? So I would agree. If that is the case, if that's the situation that you find yourself in, and you feel like, oh my God, I'm adding to the marketing noise, please don't post to social media. Don't. It's okay. You don't have to do that. It is fine. I think we're all like thinking, I don't need to hear someone again tell me an amazing 6-step content strategy to get my 6-figure income. But if there's another agenda for yourself, and I think this is what Laurence was talking about and alluding to, if you find just writing and articulating, thingifying your thoughts a helpful process for clarity building, and not only that, building connections, then maybe it's worth having a go. And so there's a few things I thought we could talk about here. There's firstly just reframing what it means to interact on social media. Maybe we can talk about some of the platforms we enjoy using and why. And then thirdly, this idea, what does it mean to launch? What does it mean to actually launch an idea? Because I think a lot of people think about the hard launch, the heavy launch. We've come up with a phrase called the fuzzy launch on the program.
Fluffy.
Maybe fluffy launch, the fluffy launch. Sorry, the
Probably
fluffy.
fuzzy as well, but yeah, fluffy will do.
So we're going to touch on that as well. But rewinding. Where were we? So the first thing was like this idea of engaging with social media and thinking out loud, working out loud, having that approach. What is the benefit of that approach?
Well, actually, I was having a conversation with someone yesterday and I think this is a common thing of like wanting to, she wants to be more intentional about her work, and is kind of had enough of being reactive to opportunities, sort of sitting passively waiting for the right role to come or the right project to come. She's a contractor. And I think this is a good point where she can build her authority. So for me, building authority in terms of building trust and awareness and credibility in your area, I think is a huge benefit to starting to share your thoughts, because then you get to say, this is what I believe in, this is what I think is important, these are my values or my insights. And then people can start to build trust with you that way. And then you can get to be more intentional about the work you want to do and who you want to do it with. And then those people find you rather than you having to wait for them to, well, you having to find them basically. So trying to change that dynamic so you're not just sitting there passively waiting for the right opportunity and then ending up on different spirals, not really having much control over your destiny.
For me, one of the benefits of sharing my ideas or what I'm working on um, is around the practice of Nemawashi. So for the Japanese culture of digging around the roots. So when you're trying to plant replant a tree, you need to dig around the roots first. And if you have a project, or if you have a proposal, before you create the proposal, is you talk to the right people, get information first from people, what has worked for them, what are their ideas. And for me, this informs a lot of the work that I'd want to do, is to gather from people, of what are the solutions, what are the things that they have already, looked at. Because there's so much of the, oh, I'll build it and then I'll let people use it approach. And then we end up with stuff that is not really useful or impactful at all. So for me, going back to, yeah, going using the practice of Nemawashi to talk to people, to get their opinions, to get their ideas, and support in harnessing what's already working well, rather than reinventing the wheel every time, helps in putting more impactful programs and services out there. So this is more on the professional side, right? On a personal side, yeah, like what Lauren said, blogging, or writing about my experiences has been so cathartic for me, given the things that I've gone through medically. So for me, I use it as my own way of processing information. Like, something happened. Okay, how do I process that? Writing has been a big part of my healing process. And I realized at the start of, like, when I share things of, hey, this is what I've been thinking about, and this is what I feel, that there are a lot of other women who would message me and say, thank you for writing that. It's something that I've been thinking about as well. So, if my writing, if my way of sharing what's happening or what's alive in me is supporting other people to look at themselves, and that becomes a mirror for their own experiences and how they can approach it, for me, that's such a what's this nourishing way of using my voice, so that people would know that they're not alone in whatever they're struggling with.
Mm. Thanks, Lana. Um, I think there's this idea of sharing your voice in order to be heard, um, and there's sharing your voice in order to connect, uh, and help other people share theirs. And I think if there's this fear, I feel like, of, oh, we're gonna take up space and I'm gonna add to the noise and just, what have I got to say? I think all of us are curious about something, and all of us are wanting to explore. And we either explore in our heads and just go, tails or sort of wheel spin, trying to sort of understand something, or we just immerse ourselves in books and podcasts, or we just share that question with others and just understand, what do you think,
Mm.
and invite people to share their ideas as well. Because I think a lot of the time, I believe, do you remember in class, and the teacher would say, or someone would say, does anybody have any questions? Anybody got any questions? Or you're in a talk in like a big auditorium, and like the speakers, all right, any questions? And no one wants to say anything because everyone thinks, oh
Unless
my God.
Carlos is there. Carlos always put his hand up in the class.
What is it? But everyone thinks you got the obvious question. Oh, I'm not going to ask this question because everyone knows the answer. And then someone puts their hand up and asks the question that's in your head. And then, oh, I thought I was the only idiot who didn't know that question.
Mm.
It's like, no. So let's expand that to the rest of the world. There are so many people who are probably asking the same question as you, who think they're on their own and would love to say share their own opinion. So if anything, particularly for the people pleasers out there, if you could turn up as someone who invites conversations out loud, invites conversations in public, you're doing other people a service because you're feeling like, there's someone there who's like letting me have a say. And B, you're going to learn so much because that to and fro, that engagement is going to clarify your own ideas, and you'll want to chip in. And suddenly you've got a lovely little community of people like Anne-Laure Leconte, who we're going to be talking to tomorrow, who was curious about um, creating these kind of tiny experiments in life and using life as a lab. You start meeting new people and building connections and creating community. And that's how the Happy Startup School started.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'd say is, like you said, thinking about content in different ways, because I think, like you said, a lot of people think about content as just self-promotion. They're just literally, they've got a thing to sell. They want to put it out there. It's all about me. Versus, like you said, you can start with inviting dialogue and conversation. So start with a question, not the answer. Invite in expertise from others, because everyone loves to contribute. Everyone likes to look clever, don't they? The other thing is curating. So what do you like? Like, what is it that you are inspired by? And this is where I started, was actually looking at all these great things that I was learning and we were learning on this journey working with startups and going, this book's amazing, or this business is amazing. They've inspired us. They did this thing. Go check it out. So it was less about me or us. It was more about curating the things that we found interesting. So in some ways, you're researching out loud. You're sharing the things that are inspiring you. And the other thing is championing others. So like we do with the program, sharing, or people in the community, like just sharing other projects that are on this path to a more positive impact. So there's lots of different ways you can do this, and not just look at me and look at the thing that I'm doing.
Yeah. For me, particularly for the people in our community, they have ideas. They have lots of ideas, many, many ideas. And sometimes it's trying to work out what to focus on, sometimes trying to work out where the energy is, sometimes about getting your own clarity around things. Having more conversation. So starting off with a premise. I think this, but I'd love to know what you think. As a way to ultimately just feel like you're not alone and feel like this is a process. If I think of our values, is learning, play, friendship. This is all part of putting an idea out there so you can learn more, creating connections and friendships because you are able to meet discover people that you'd never met before. And I think this is where Twitter was really good in the beginning. I don't go there anymore. And that's just why I like LinkedIn more these days. It's like you find people who will share their ideas and you start having conversations. And it's less about how much engagement you're getting from a lot of people. It's like, wow, I'm actually learning something from someone and I've made a friend and I'm going to have a call with them at some point because I really want to know more about them. And to think about that as a pathway into engaging in a more public way, I think for me, it's been really helpful in terms of reframing the experience of working out loud.
Yeah. And I think there's also the I would say myths around working out loud that we also need to address, because oftentimes, especially with yeah, around perfectionism, right? There's a, oh, it needs to be perfect before I can share it, or it needs to be finished before I can share it. Um and this, you know, end goal, the feels for me, takes out the benefits of looking at the process. Like, how did you get there? What did you do to get to that point? What did you where did you find your strengths on? Who did you collaborate with? Who supported you? So these are, for me, these are the juicier stuff. Yeah, these are the parts that make especially entrepreneurial life rich, because this is where we can really grow, and not the, hey, here, look, this is what I did. So for me, working out loud is also being open to share, the process around it. Um, having, having also the courage to share the fuck ups. Like, it's
Mhm.
not always perfect. It's not always easy. So how do we also do that in a society that celebrates um looking at only, the grandeur, uh, better side of things? So for me, this is also the invitation to look at working out loud as an opportunity to say, hey, this is what I'm learning from this experience.
Mm. And one quick thing I've seen people do that works quite well, particularly those that are looking to share something that feels vulnerable. Or I know there's actually, he pretty won't mind me saying, Harry, who was on the last cohort, I think he'd been on LinkedIn for 8 years, and he posted his first post as part of the challenge. And all he did was just start with, okay, deep breaths. And that was the first thing you wrote for this first post. And that just created that instant feeling of, I'm feeling a bit vulnerable sharing this. I've been sitting on this for a long time. Who's with me? Who else feels like this? And that creates that bond of A, you know what I'm like, what I'm feeling, and B, I'm not the expert here. I'm just trying to share something that's really important to me. So sharing what's going on for you, how you're feeling about your relationship to sharing your content will actually connect you to people, I think, because it just makes you seem a bit more human.
I think it's very important to really be I think what we're talking about is being really intentional about the purpose of you engaging in working out loud. And it reminds me of the process, like the design process. The initial bit is really messy. It is just curiosity. It's like going down rabbit holes. You're not trying to convert anyone as such. Ultimately, you're probably exploring a space of ideas and expressing yourself and exploring how you want to express yourself, finding your voice in a certain way. And at some point, I think there is a shift in intentionality that if you actually want to do this as a way to, let's say, market yourself, connect with the people you want to serve, and connect with people you want to help, then you can start becoming a bit more focused. And then you can find a structure around that. And maybe we could talk a bit about that. But I think it's very important to distinguish between the two, because I think what Lana was talking about in terms of authenticity at the beginning, there is being really clear about what does it mean? Why do you need to be authentic? Is it purely to be heard and seen for something that's really deeply important to you? Or is it to connect with the people you want to serve? Because if it is to connect with the people you want to serve, then you start to become discerning about the stories that you need to tell in order to create that connection. And I wanted to sort of like bring in Deborah's question here, because I feel like it tangentially connects to this. She says, I'd love to share more personal stories and thoughts on LinkedIn as I'm developing my own business, but I currently work in a large corporation and I feel that I can't express myself freely. Any thoughts? It's really interesting. Again, I'm going to go back to Anne Law because she's got this in her book that I was just reading last night, and basically anecdote connected to this. But it's real, and I've experienced it with the people I coach. Is like I work for this business. I feel like I can't express myself fully in case I get judged or something happens. There's various levels of resistance because of being connected to a wider organization. So I'm not going to say we have the specific answers for you here, but maybe you can offer some perspectives that might help. I don't know, Laurence or Lana, thoughts?
Well, yeah, I suppose I could start with, well, there's different layers. There could be different layers to that, couldn't there, in terms of whether it's a conflict of interest, whether there's like worrying about people that you talk about being sort of, mentioned, or it could just be thinking that people in the organization are just going to judge you and wonder what you're up to, and is that going to spin them out or spin out your network? It's a problem that quite a few people in the program have faced because a lot of people that we work with are in transition. They could be transitioning from the corporate life to entrepreneurship. They could be transitioning from their existing business to something else. There's a sensitivity to talking about things that are more personal to them. So I suppose that aside, often we find the fears that people have aren't often realized. So that's one thing to say. The other thing to say is I had this with the Happy Startup School before we even came up with the name. I was sharing ideas outside of the agency, and I found the platform. I think it was Posterous at the time. I don't know if you remember that, but yeah, it was a sort of very simple blogging platform. But it was an outlet, and I had a sort of a name for it, and it was almost a place to hide, but with an outlet. So for me, it was a useful starting point to sort of share ideas and more personal stories. So that was more of a safe space. LinkedIn wasn't a big thing at the time. I certainly wasn't on it. But that helped me build my confidence. So maybe there's a Substack or some platform that you could use that wasn't LinkedIn if you felt like it was too sensitive or you had to filter yourself too much to share the things that you want to share on a public platform like that or professional platform.
And this is why we call it the fluffy launch, right? Because we'd want to create a safer enough environment to just start getting into sharing your thoughts and expressing yourself freely. The I take in the word freely in the question as, oh, there's an element of safety there, or it's an element of what would be comfortable. So in Vision 2020, we often say, let's try to use the principle of what's good enough for now, safer enough to try. And in approaching sharing your voice that feels safer enough and good enough for now, it also means, like what Lauren said, might be curating who you want to share it with at the start and then expanding from there. Or it might also mean looking at what are the themes that you would want to talk about in the first place that seem safer enough to share ideas or curate materials, or yeah, to write from. So these are just some of the strategies that you can think of in terms of what would make it comfortable for you to start sharing and expressing yourselves in a way that is good enough for now, safe enough to try.
Mm.
Yeah, I want to pick up on that idea of expressing myself freely. What that means to me is that there are constraints, and so my question would be, what are those perceived constraints, Deborah? What is it that you think you might be going against if you started expressing yourself freely? The other part of this is, which stage are you at with this business idea? Is it a case that you want to express yourself freely to market and find customers? And like Laurence said, does that then go against where you are working at the moment? Is there a risk that of being seen to do that? Um, or is it you're in like very early stage customer development mode, idea sort of development mode, which Lana was, I think, alluding to, is like you want to be able to just connect with people who can maybe collaborate or help you shape this idea. So how much of a risk is there of you doing that while in this organization? Which then leads me to the question of, have you talked to anyone in your company about this? Have you actually broached the idea? So like, I've got an idea, I want to play with it. Is it possible? Or maybe with colleagues, and see if anyone else has done something like this, just to confirm whether the lack of freedom is real or whether it's a perception. Uh, and then the final thing is a bit like Laurence said, and I've had this with a coaching client. If it's purely about trying to get clarity and express yourself freely and just like this inside out approach, finding a place that is safe, like Substack, an anonymous Substack, or go to another platform. I don't know if it's a visual thing on Instagram, but just a place where, yeah, you can play without constraints. If there's a real risk, just being, yeah, there being repercussions. So I hope those questions, yeah, spark some movement forward.
Yeah. I think one thing to add just there is linked to the idea of the fluffy launch is sort of testing this out in different with different size groups. So like, the way we just structure the program is kind of intentional in that you get to share your ideas with your mentor, one of us, you get to share it then with your buddy group, which is up to 6 people. Then you can share it with the wider cohort. And so by the time you get to a platform like LinkedIn or Substack, you're much more confident and clear about, is this actually something that's going to land well? I think it's always hard when it's something quite raw, like a personal story. Just that balance of how authentic do I want to be? How real do I want to be? And what's too much? Is this too much? So just having that sounding board is so helpful, I think, to, whether it's on our program or some people close to you who you trust, you can sort of get that initial feedback before putting it out there. Because I think that just lowers the bar of fear a bit more.
Nice. Cool. So I'm conscious of time.
Mhm.
And I would also like to address Anthony's question. Maybe it's connected to this.
Yeah.
And the topic being, what's the easiest way to share your voice? And it is connected to what Anthony was asking. Is like, if you want to get into sharing your writing in this case, which would you choose, a blog or a newsletter, a bit of both? So we can talk to this question specifically. And if you wish, maybe a wider, like, I want to start sharing my voice. How do I think about that? How do I start doing that?
Well, I suppose the way I think about a newsletter is something in my head that is an email, goes to an email list. The beauty about Substack is it's a blogging platform or a writing platform, but you actually have people's emails, so it does go to their email. So in essence, Substack is a platform that I would say covers both needs. We used to be on Medium to host our blog. It's still there, but we don't post there that much these days because the model changed and the paywall went up, and that meant that we sort of lost a lot of readership. So, and also with Medium, you can't necessarily get the people's emails. So that was a bit of a shame. So yeah, personally, I think Substack's a great platform for that. I know Lana, you post regularly on that, so I guess you're a bit of a fan.
Yeah, I love the flexibility of a platform, right? So even now, Substack can also do videos for those who are more in audio. So for those who are uh, used to videos, that's something to consider as well. Another way to approach this question for me is where are the people that I would want, this content to be for? And that's basically how, I see different social media platforms, different platforms as a hub, as a hub for connection. So looking at, hey, if these are the profiles of people that I would want to share this with, will they be there? So
Mm.
that's my question for myself when I'm starting something.
Yeah, I think with the sharing the voice thing, it's and even with Anthony's question about sharing his writing, I would ask what is the intention? Because is the intention just to express yourself and just to essentially it's like public journaling? And it doesn't really matter which platform you're on, as long as it's a platform that you can easily write to and post to without too much effort. You could even use Notion. You could use a Google Doc. Um, have a bunch of people that you like and write into a Google Doc and ask them to comment on it if it's something that you just want to have a private place to journal. If it's more like Lana was saying, this is to start growing a following, start growing a community. I think something to really bear in mind is discoverability. How easy will it be to discover you and your ideas? Because if you want to start connecting with people, then you got to really make it easy for them to find you. I don't know what the discoverability is like on Substack, but I do wonder if it was a discoverability and maybe someone else's discoverability, LinkedIn newsletter, LinkedIn articles, because you have a bunch of people there. You can point people directly to a LinkedIn article, and I'm sorry to say or talk about this, the algorithm won't penalize you as much to go somewhere else. So this is where I'm now starting talking a bit strategically now, and this is based on having a different intention. And ultimately, the sharing your voice thing, and this is what we try and help people with, is get really clear about the core intention, because then you won't be disappointed. Because if your intention is like, I just want to express myself, and you start looking at likes, that's not going to
Mm.
help. That's going to stop you writing. Yeah. So really be true to what that is, what you're trying to do, as opposed to feel like you're following someone else's script about what success means. And in this case, writing.
Building that habit as well. Like you said, it needs to be a platform that you feel comfortable with and actually enjoy using, because otherwise you're not going to stick at it. So yeah, just
I
finding that
love the
cadence.
fact that you talked about habits there, because I want to just show this thing before we end. This is something
It's,
actually I quite uh, and we're gonna and also this is a good opportunity. Tomorrow we're gonna talk to Anne-Laure Lecomte. She wrote a book called Tiny Experiments. The idea about tiny experiments is about how to uh, sort of play your way forward in exploring ideas to find maybe a new direction for work, for a new direction for your business, or just a new direction in life, and to play in this liminal space. One of the things she talks about, and a lot of people talk about this, is to create a habit, a small habit, and she calls it actually a pact. And so maybe it's a 90-day pact, a 30-day pact. In this case, a 7-day pact to just try something out. All right, I'm just going to try it out for a certain amount of time. So it doesn't mean, oh, no, I have to think about, oh, I'm going to start a habit. It means like, oh my God, I have to keep this up for the rest of time. It's like, no, I'm going to make a pact with myself and ideally with other people to do something for a fixed amount of time and to just turn up each day. And so in this case, what what this guide is about is actually to help you. And it isn't just about LinkedIn, it's about actually just writing in public, but to have constraints and just say, all right, it's constraints on the structure. I'm going to do it for 7 days. I'm going to post in a certain way, and I'm going to stop and then see what happens. And whether that's a podcast, whether that's um, writing on Substack, whether that's wherever it is, but to find a group of people to have a pact with and say, do you know what? Let's do this together. We're going to spend 7 days doing this thing, and we're going to see what it's like afterwards, and keep yourselves accountable. And maybe it's 20 weeks because maybe you want to launch a business. Because if that's the case, maybe you should join us on Vision 2020. But whatever it is, if you struggled, if you've been sitting on an idea for ages, it means doing it alone isn't an option. Find others, find a guide, find a group, try and get momentum and safety by doing this with a bunch of other people. Cool. Okay. Any final thoughts before we close?
Mhm.
It has been a pleasure having these conversations. Like this is also like a sneak peek of what we do within the program, and also how we are when we're thinking about the program, and all the improvements, the upgrades that we did for the past 5 years. Um, and so these sessions has been really like a consolidation of all the previous tribes, 10, yeah, turning 11 now, cohort. Um, so yeah, for me, I'm celebrating that we're able to share this message of how impactful and how powerful Vision 2020 is as a program, having guided so many founders and change makers for the past 5 years already. So I'm hoping that this sparks interest and also sparks curiosity for people, and that knowing that this is just like a nudge, right? And hopefully those who would be watching the replays or accessing it in some shape, or form, know that you got to this series for a reason. So trust whatever instinct, whatever gut is calling you to move your ideas forward.
Mhm. And in essence, if we hadn't started on this journey individually, I don't think we'd be sharing our work out loud like this week. So yeah, this is proof of the pudding, I guess, that we walk the walk here and share as much as we learn as we go. Yeah, I would love to do more of these with some of the community as well. I don't know if we'll get time, given we've got the next tribe starting in a couple of weeks. But yeah, this idea of sharing some of these voices that have been on this journey with us over the last 5 years, because yeah, for us, it's as much about the community as it is about us guiding people. But you know, it's been great this week, and I'd love to have everyone join us. So thank you for the comments, all the questions, all the prompts. Like Carla said, we could spend months on this, and we do. So yeah, I'd love to help some of you that feel called to go on this journey with us, because it's a lovely one.
Over the past 5 years, I have, by practicing this stuff and doing it regularly, I've found myself deepening in the work and really understanding what it is, not only that we're trying to do for other people, but what I'm trying to do for myself. And being able to share ideas and then also get questions and feedback and engage in conversation, that really helped us. Luckily, there's 3 of us that we can talk and develop and deepen ideas together, but it becomes an echo chamber at some point. It's always really useful to have the thoughts and ideas of others. So I really appreciate everyone who's joined the live sessions. And if any of this resonates, if you feel like actually I'm ready now, I feel like I'm at a point, like Lara said, to actually start working on this idea, but in a different way, not in the striving traditional business way, but for this inside out approach, and you want to learn more, click on the link at the bottom of the screen. We have an open day next week. You'll get to meet other people who are doing the program, as well as get to learn and experience what the program is really about. So until then, thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care. See
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.